Hello, and welcome to the Fabric Spotlight series, a series of talks with cloud influencers in the cloud and infrastructure space. Today, I'm delighted to chat with Karl Gouverneur. Karl is the former CIO and head of digital innovation and transformation at Northwestern Mutual, a US-based $30 billion insurance services company located in Milwaukee. Karl, welcome to the Fabric Spotlight series.
Hello, Rajan. Good to be here. Let's do it.
So before we get deeply into the discussion, could you talk a little bit about yourself, your journey here, what you were responsible for?
So most recently, I was at Northwestern Mutual. I had several roles there, including being chief architect, the chief technology officer, and recently chief information officer for a large swath of the digital products that they had over there. I was also leading transformation initiatives, things related to financial technology, insurance technology, our venture investments, and the scope of what I covered were things like workplace technology, capital markets, HR, compliance, finance, and customer service and operations technology. Great company. And prior to that, I was also in the property casualty world. I was in the consulting world, and I also did my own startup in the mid 90s, focused on services.
So, Karl, I want to pick up on a particular element of responsibility that you had, which is the digital transformation initiatives. Mm-hmm. How do you define what a digital transformation initiative is? And B, is what impact do you think it had on the organization?
This is probably the most overused buzzword in today's tech world, digital transformation. And so let's just break down the two words and try to make sure that we all on the same page. First of all, it's a journey. It's not a project. It's not a collection of projects. There's certainly going to be initiatives that you have to work on, but it's a journey. And so when you talk about digital transformation, what is digital? What aspect of it is digital? Is really mitigating the risk of digital disruption. And then transformation, when you think of transformation, you think of going from, say, a caterpillar to a butterfly, truly changing whatever it is that you're trying to change to an unrecognizable state. And in business, that could be new sources of revenue, new lines of business, monetization of the data, going from physical to virtual. And so when you look at that and you put the two words together, digital transformation is technology is now enabling these things that allow companies to find these new ways of doing work. So some examples, if you look at industrials, a company like GE or Schneider Electric or any of these industrials, they have switched from making and selling big machines to they still make and sell big machines, but they're monetizing the services and the data that comes off these devices, these machines with IoT. That's an example. For us in financial services at Northwestern Mutual, the transformation was more about providing a delightful, amazing, engaging customer experience. So those are just two examples. And so when you use technology to disrupt the business model, to disrupt the distribution, to disrupt the engagement, new digital offerings have to be created that lead to new digital revenue. So our engagement and our desire was, to get there, and the cloud was a big part of this because we had to create systems that took advantage of the agility and the continuity that the cloud provides.
Fantastic. So, apropos to the environment today, what effect did you think that COVID has had on digital transformation?
Well, I think it depends on the company, right? For some company, it was survival. For some companies, it was business as usual. And for other companies, it actually became growth. I saw a meme the other day that was floating around the social media channels. I think it had who led digital transformation at your company? And it's got A, the CEO, B, the CIO, and then C, COVID-19. And when you look at how and COVID-19 was actually circled, and when you see how some companies have definitely taken a decline, some companies have remained the same, and some companies have really growth out of this. Some examples of the impact include, I mean, the fact that we're doing this as a webcast. I mean, the work from home, telecommuting. You happen to be one place, I happen to be another place. We didn't have to meet somewhere, so that had a big impact. On demand, excuse me, on demand services like food services, health services. I mean, look at health. Telemedicine was not something that was permitted or allowed by many hospitals up until now. And I just did a consult with my doctor, a regular consult, and he said, "Oh, I'll just, the way we're doing things now is we're just doing FaceTime." Wow, just like that. So I don't have to go to the doctor. No. Why didn't we do this 10 years ago? Well, we just couldn't do it. Other things like luxury. I participated in an event the other day where they shipped me a box with some liquor. We had a happy hour and we were able to exchange ideas on watch collecting. So that's had a big impact, and I think it has also had a big impact on experiences. But most companies also have been impacted in terms of their sales channel. Now, salespeople don't have to travel to the location. They can just push a button and they can maximize their time. How about manufacturing and robotics? And then finally, another impact of COVID has been risk management and cybersecurities. The bad guys taking advantage of everybody working from home. So we need to provide more secure environments for people working from home, including a more elegant VPN experience, which I know you at the Fabric have a company that focuses on that.
Thanks. Actually, I can relate to something which you said about having a doctor doing a digital diagnosis, or at least having a FaceTime. I'm here taking care of my dad, and his doctor just talks to him regularly on FaceTime.
Yeah, yeah.
So
No doubt.
it's funny how things have changed. And besides COVID, culture also matters in digital transformation. You have been in a very large financial services company. You've also been advisors to multiple companies. What effect do you think culture has on digital transformation?
Well, to me, it is the most pervasive and impactful issue with regards to transforming a company with digital enablers. Everything from the board. So the board has to have some amount of acceptance that things have to change. Executive leadership, change management principles and practices, leadership behaviors. One of the things that I did at my last place was we had several behaviors like every other company has, whether it's taking accountability or delivering results or being metrics driven or whatever those behaviors are. We introduced a new one that we called digital savvy, actually understanding robotics and analytics and not being afraid to understand the art of possible. The other thing that has to change in terms of culture, and while today we're not going to the office, at some point teams and spaces and how people work together and how the workflow happens, being more agile, that also has to change, and that's changing the way people work. So when you look at digital transformation and you understand that you need to have data and AI, machine learning of some sort, you need to find ways to do digitization and automation. You need to have, as always, good sponsorship from somewhere to get this going. I would say the fourth piece and most important piece is culture. It's one of those things that new technology and processes and ways of working and decision drivers, culture will just blow right through all of that if it's not taken care of. So what would be some of those elements of culture that have to change? So instead of being focused on individual efforts and rewarding individual efforts, instead reward collaboration, reward that team environment, do more and plan less. Again, that's something that people have to get over. Here's one that if you have a risk management mindset, it's just counterintuitive. And most financial services have that risk management mindset, but it's the ability to test, learn, and modify. To continually learn as a result of this, as opposed to have scaled efficiencies, have scaled learnings. And this is hard in financial services. Pushing the decisions as low as possible within the teams. And also, finally, bringing that outside perspective. Those are all things that I believe will have an impact on culture as all of us move through this journey of digital transformation.
I'm sure one of the hardest things that you may have had to deal with at the part of culture, as you mentioned, is adoption of the cloud. And what was the kind of issues that you face, and what were the key areas of cloud adoption that you undertook at Northwestern, and how do you see that happening in the rest of the industry?
Well, not just where I was at Northwestern, but many of the peer companies, and I can see this as I continue to advise other companies on their moving to the cloud. There, I would say in the mid 2010, so 2013, 14, the cloud became a relevant and, let's just say, a viable enabling technology for companies. It was too soon in 2007, 2008, 2009 when Amazon Web Services was emerging and Microsoft didn't, Azure wasn't really in existence. But by 2013, 14, the capabilities basically surpassed those capabilities that we can provide in our own data centers. With that, then came the consideration of, okay, do you want to start moving some things to the cloud, and what is the reason for that? What is the value for that? In my case, the value of moving things to the cloud was not about cost. It was about agility, and it was about capability, and it's about being responsive to the market. Yes, there were some elements of cost that have to be managed, but apples to apples, when you're comparing your own data center and what you can do to what is available in the cloud, cost was not the big driver. The biggest driver was around agility. And so we embarked on the journey to figure out, okay, if we're going to use this, and unfortunately, these cloud platforms like Azure and AWS, they're not just ready to go play. You have to build your own infrastructure in order to connect your own services and your own APIs and your own set of, let's just say, services to that cloud provider. That's going to take time, and that's going to take investment. So as an example, being able to do complete seamless security, single sign-on, making sure the data is secure, check all the security boxes that you have to check per the policies and the processes and the attorneys and all the different people that exist in your own company with that cloud provider. That's something you're going to have to do, and you're going to have to invest. You can't just swipe the credit card and start using the public cloud. You're going to have to invest. So that takes time. What in your legacy application family are you going to strengthen? What are you going to lift and make it more modern of all of your legacies so that your cloud native world can talk to it? So this could be applying APIs to the mainframe system, or this could be having modern ways to integrate and building that API set of APIs that you're going to have to expose. And then linking aspects of your business, both the front office, what's facing the customer, and processes both in the middle and back office. And then finally, applying what I talked about before in terms of culture change. What will be those elements of culture that you will directly and in a way, what I would say is definitively, don't dance around it. What are you going to change about the culture? One of the diagrams that I've used in the past is a diagram of like a thermometer, and as an example, going from individual contribution, moving it to teamwork contribution. And you can show these types of dials to people so they can understand where the culture change is going to exist. And then finally, figure out what your organizational structure is going to be in this new world. Figure out, what do you have to do to architecture and technology governance in the IT organization. And then last step that I think is there is, data governance, security, privacy, ethics, the explainability of some of these data things, the lineage of the data. All of these things have to be very transparent, and you're going to have to change as a result of that.
It's interesting. You mentioned OpsCruise and also a cloud native set of apps. So how do you see that as you look across the industry, the adoption of Kubernetes, the creation of cloud native apps instead of lift and shift? How do you see that happening, and what are the issues that you see as you create these cloud native apps?
Well, you got to take the time to do the thinking and the architecture and the design and the planning that has to happen. You need to make sure that you establish your teams in a what I would call a cloud native way, adopting agile methods, adopting continuous integration, continuous deployment. Set of pipelines. You need to make sure you have automated testing, and you need to make sure that the infrastructure, what's either sitting in between the glass house or sitting in between the cloud environment with a cloud provider, nothing should get in the way of that developer. That's the most important thing in my mind. That developer experience, the engineering experience, in order to create those assets that live in the cloud, has to be a seamless, touchless, as automated as possible experience, and always looking forward to continue to iterate, because the open source world isn't stopping. And most of these assets and most of these workbenches and most of these things that we use today to create modern applications all are mostly enabled by open source. And so you have to keep up with that open source. And thus it's important to find partnerships that allow you to bring in commercial versions of these open source, so you don't have to be in that game.
You touched upon a very nice trend that's happening, which is open source and adoption of cloud native apps. What are the other major trends as you look forward? I mean, the open source and the cloud native apps are certainly trends, but there may be other trends that are emerging. How do you see, and as you look into the crystal ball, what do you see as the major trends in the industry?
Yeah, this is a question that is a classic question, and one that I'm not a big fan of. And that is because I think we should adopt what is out there today. I think there's still many companies, in particular, as I go through and I advise and assess and work with other companies. Most companies still haven't adopted the cloud in a way that is truly part of their core. Most companies are still dabbling with some of these advanced analytics and machine learning techniques. Again, they probably have a side project, or they probably working with their chief marketing officer on something, but these things have not been adopted widely. And so instead of chasing that next big thing, what I would encourage CIOs and other technology leaders to do is try to adopt some of these things that are living here today. So an example, if you're going to have a cloud instance, you're going to be building cloud applications, you must do that on top of orchestration software like Kubernetes. You must use things like containerization, and you have to establish this environment with leading state-of-the-art architectures that, while they're no longer trendy, let's just say where you are, Rajan, in the valley, because you would never have a startup start, with some of these legacies. But some of these established companies, incumbent financial services companies, they need to embrace and adopt these things, and they're far behind. That's my observation. So Kubernetes is one of those technologies that I think has a lot of legs going forward. Now, to answer your question specifically, I think there's a couple of things out there. More and more usage of advanced analytics, machine learning, and artificial intelligence. That has to continue to evolve. I see some of the things that I live today in my own consumer experience, and I go, wow, AI has to do this at some point. And then one emerging technology that I see that we all have to figure out what algorithms will be disrupted as a result of this is quantum computing, and leveraging quantum computing in the cloud. I think those are two that have one has a lot of legs still left in it, and one is emerging and will provide an amount of disruption to existing algorithms, things like actuarial algorithms, things like mortgage origination algorithms, things that have been automated today, where quantum computing is just going to break down those algorithms and completely make them fall apart.
That's very interesting, actually,
Well,
quantum computing.
I know, but
Yeah,
it's to solve business problems that are unsolvable today with classic computing paradigms.
fantastic, fantastic. Carl, you have been in a great vantage point. You must have had a lot of startups come and pitch to you. You must have met a lot of entrepreneurs besides established vendors. What advice do you have for entrepreneurs and the learnings that you would like to pass on to them?
Well, being a former entrepreneur myself, there was a lot of learnings from my time having a startup I think we got it going in 95 and we exited in 2001, somewhat on the way down from the dot-com bust, but we still did okay. So some thoughts that come to mind. The most important thing that an entrepreneur has to do is surround themselves with a diverse team of people that are going to be top quality people added to the team. Tech and fundraising and some of those other aspects of entrepreneurial initiatives are important. Don't get me wrong. You got to have money. You got to have the technology. But the people that you surround yourself with as an entrepreneur, those first key 5 to 10 hires are very important and are very important for the longevity and kind of health of the small startup company. The second thing that I would advise entrepreneurs is what will be your sales methods. I get a lot of phone calls. I get a lot of invitations to events. I get a lot of things. But I also realize I don't pay attention to any of that. I pay attention to other CIOs when they advise me or tell me about startups that they may have experience with. I pay attention to some of the research analysts that are paying attention to the startup world. And that's something that all startups need to have is a connection to the research community and making sure you're creating that buzz. And then finally, there's nothing worse than a cold referral, and there's nothing better than a warm referral. So try to find those warm referrals into companies to lead you into, listen, all I want to do is show you what we got and see if you can learn something from it. And if it's going to add value to your environment, then let's have the conversation.
Fantastic. Karl, it has been great chatting with you. We have been working together for a while, and this has been absolutely insightful. So I really want to thank you for your time. And thanks, everyone. Wait for another series of interesting talks at the Fabric Spotlight. Thanks again, Karl.
Thank you. Thank you, Rajan.